Hi, I'm Debbie from Off Topic, Things I Didn't Plan to Learn. Today I'm going to talk a little bit more about living in Costa Rica and what I did to try to earn some money. Um, I realized that I needed to get a little bit of extra money so that I would be able to make trips back to visit my family in the United States. So I started thinking about what could I do to earn some money. I learned to paint some paintings. I took a painting class and I ended up being able to sell some of my paintings to some of my neighbors, and I put some online and people wanted to buy them, so I sold them that way also. I wasn't the greatest of painters, but it was a fun time doing that, and I'm still painting to this day. Um, but another thing that I found that I could do without being in trouble, because I was only a temporary resident and you're not allowed to actually have a job there. If you're a temporary resident, you have to be a permanent resident to be able to work, was I would be able to tutor. So I started tutoring. And I started tutoring for free. I was tutoring English. Um, I'd been a teacher in the United States in grades kindergarten through 12th grade, and I also had taught some adults. Um, I was not an English teacher, but I spoke English, and I figured, well, I can teach English. That shouldn't be a problem. So little did I realize it was really going to be a problem if I was teaching a beginner English, because I didn't really know hardly any Spanish at that time. And I needed to be able to speak a lot of Spanish if I was teaching a beginner. If I was teaching somebody that had a little bit of a grasp of English, intermediate approximately, then that person might not need as much Spanish. If I was teaching an advanced person, that would be really easy. I could do that with no problem. I didn't need any Spanish for that. So basically, I learned that by trial and error. I started off tutoring a couple of taxi drivers, and they'd already been to my house taking me home or picking me up. And when we were in the taxi, they indicated that they were interested in learning English. So the next time that I saw them in the taxi, I asked them if they would like to have a free class at my little cabin, and they said yes. And so I had a class out on the porch, and I would have individual classes, and I would ask the taxi drivers what kinds of things would they like to learn how to say to their passengers. And I knew that some of the things are going to be turn left, turn right. The passengers might say those things. Turn around, go to the feria, go to the bank, different kinds of things like that. So I taught them those kinds of phrases. I knew that people were going to be asking that. And then they told me some other kinds of things that they needed to learn. And so I worked with them and tried to teach them those things, and they were happy about it. And there was no charge, it was free. And I remember one man came and brought me some little notebooks in exchange for doing that. And I thought that was really sweet. Um, Later on, I started talking about it at my church, because I had started to go to a Spanish speaking church, and they were also doing English services too. And so they were trying to learn how to do English services. So they were having us listen to headphones with translators, helping us to learn um, to be able to understand the Spanish songs. So I started talking to the people at my church also that I was doing these English classes. And so a lot of people there indicated they wanted to take them. And so many people indicated it that I had a group of like 15 or 20 people that were taking my classes. And we would meet at the church, and it was a big, wide variety of people that came. I had some people that were like high school students, um, all the way through senior citizens from the church that came, and that was that was pretty good for a while. But then, whenever I was having the next class, it might be a whole different group of people, and I never knew who was going to show up. Um, and also, if I would give homework, they wouldn't do it, and they would come in late, and sometimes there'd be nobody there, and I'd have all these lessons ready that I'd worked on really hard. And so it got to be really frustrating. So finally, one day I just said, "No more. I'm not doing any more classes for the people here. I'm stopping." So they felt a little embarrassed that that happened, and they realized, that they weren't coming and they weren't being responsible, and so that stopped. Well, then a lady from my church came up to me one day and said, "I was at the hair salon the other day, and this lady said that she would like to get a tutor for her 2.5-year-old son, and she would pay for it." And I was like, 2.5 years old? And I thought, wow, that the kid is barely speaking, and he's going to learn English. That's really going to be something. And I thought, wow, I'm definitely going to need to learn to know Spanish to speak with him. So I was working on my Spanish. I was taking Duolingo and doing all kinds of things to really practice my Spanish. And my church started a Spanish class for the people in our group that were coming to our church, where one of the youth pastors was teaching us Spanish 4 times a week, 2 hours a day. It was pretty intense. So I was taking that, and I was doing the Duolingo, and I was talking to people as much as I could. And anyway, I called the person who had the 2.5-year-old son, and I went to their house, and they met me on the corner. The mother and the little boy came to the corner and met me. And we walked over to this big gate that was covering their property. And when she pushed the button and opened the gate, I was like, oh my gosh, it looks like Disney World in there. And I went back in, and it was a member of the community that was very wealthy, and they had an unbelievable place. They had a fountain bigger than the fountain in the park in town. They had a swimming pool that was absolutely gorgeous. They had a tree house for the little boy with electricity in it, and I could even go into the tree house. They just had a lot of things on their property. It was really amazing. So I had never, ever been to any kind of home that was like that before. I had never seen anything like that in my life. And there were all these servants that worked there. In the home of the little boy, there was just one servant. It was a woman that prepared all the meals, got everything ready, and cleaned the house. And at the house of the grandparents, there were 3 or 4 servants, and then there were many gardeners. And at Christmas time, they had a person that came and decorated their Christmas trees for them and decorated the whole outside. And I mean, it was amazing. So they had me working with the little boy, and basically she wanted me just to play with him and talk to him in English and teach him as we played. So I did that. I played with all the different toys that he had, and we talked about all the names of the dinosaurs that he had, and we lined up all the blocks in different ways, and I talked about all the different colors and numbers and so on, and we did a lot of things. Well, I ended up working with that little boy for 2.5 years. And today on my Facebook, I saw that he's just starting high school. So that's pretty exciting. So I had a wonderful time working with him, and I ended up also working with his aunt, who was already an advanced English student. And she was really amazing. And she lived in the big house. And she was a lot of fun. We had some really great conversations. She wrote lots of essays that were amazing, and I learned so much about her. She learned a lot about me as well. And we just had really, really good conversations, and I feel like she learned a lot. And then I also tutored the little boy's father for a little bit. He was a businessman, and he was very, very busy, so he wasn't able to do that many lessons, but he was also one of my students. And from them, they introduced me to some of their friends who also wanted English tutoring. So I worked with two different young men who were, I think they were both around 20 years old at the time. And I went to one of their homes. It was on the total other side of town. And then the other one I met in the library every week. And I think I met with him twice a week. And the one that lived on the other side of town, I met with him twice a week also. But this house that I went to with the little boy, I was there, I think I was there 3 or 4 times a week, with, depending on how many of the people in the family were taking lessons that day, between one and, his aunt, usually two. So I would be there maybe for 3 or 4 hours at a time. So I really got to know that family really, really well. And they considered me a member of their family, which was very special. So anyway, I had those people. And then my favorite taxi driver, his daughter began to take classes with me, and her little cousin also. They went together, and I went to the taxi driver's house and met with them. And we always had a really fun time. They were really silly girls at the time. I think they were in 5th grade when they started. And now they're in college. But they were a wild little group. They kept me on my toes. And let's see who else I had. I had a lady that worked at a factory, and she didn't get home until like 4 o'clock in the afternoon. So I had to wait several hours to work with her before I could go home. I would wait in town, and then I would take the bus back home when I finished with her. And she was really dedicated to learning English. I had lots of other students too. Some of them I had for many years, and some of them I just had for a short time, but they were all really special to me. So teaching English was a really, really good way for me to learn more Spanish, and also to become part of the community, because I really respected the Tico culture and the community, and I wanted to be in that group. I didn't want to be considered a gringa. I didn't want to be in the gringa group. I didn't want to be in that group at all. I wanted to be with the ticas and the ticos. I wanted to be like I was part of Costa Rican culture, because the people in Costa Rica are very kind and patient and very giving and very humble. And I thought those were all really good qualities. And I wanted to be more like they were, because I thought they were great. I really enjoyed the culture so much. So that was one way that I started to acclimate to the culture. And at my church, they asked me if I would become a deacon in the church. And so I was really surprised, and I thought that was very nice, and I did become one, and I think I was the only um, American that was doing that. And so I was a deacon, and so I had to do a lot of things to help at the church. I had to help collect the offerings. I had to help pass out the communion. I had to help when people were sick or people needed assistance. I had lots of things like that to do. I had to say prayers with people in Spanish. Um, so that was a very big honor that I got. And the people at my church would say, "You're a tika, you're a tika, you're a tika with us," and so that really made me feel good. Um, so that was a great way to get used to being part of the culture. I also attended all the festivals that were in town and in other towns too. I went to different festivals. They had there's one where oxen go through the town, and they're all dressed up. They have flowers on them, bells, and they're all decorated, and they're pulling ox carts, which are all painted with beautiful colors in the town of Sarchi, which is a town between Gracia and Naranjo. And Sarchi is the place where all the furniture makers and the artisans work. And so I went to see the ox cart parade in San Ramon, and I went to all the festivals that they had. Most of them were based around the Catholic Church area too. That's where they would be in the front of the church. Um, and then I learned about the different festivals that they had. Each of the towns was named after a saint. Each of the towns that start with the word San, that means saint. Like San Ramon is for Saint Ramon. San Miguel is Saint Michael. Um, San Ysidro is Saint Isidoro. So all of the different areas around Gracia and the other towns have special festivals. When it's San Ramon Day, then there's a big fiesta in the town. There's a big marketplace at the park where people sell crafts and gifts and things, foods, all different types of foods. And there's all kinds of cultural things going on. There's different dances. They have exhibits of different cultural things in the museums. They have all different kinds of things where you can experience the culture, and you can taste all the different foods and the special foods that they have just at those particular things. So I went to everything that I could go to that had to do with fiestas in the town, in all the towns. Um, that's one of the ways that you can really get to know the feel of the people. Another way is to go to the schools. I helped out at an elementary school in a really poor part of town, part of Gracia. One of my friends was a physical education teacher named Mary, and she said, "Hey, Debbie, why don't you come with me and help me with my phys ed class?" And I said, "Sure, let me know when." And so she said, "I'll pick you up. I'll come and get you tomorrow, and you can come and help me." So I went with her, and we got to the school, and the kids were all eating breakfast that was all freshly made. And we saw the farmers actually delivering fresh food that was going to be cooked for their lunch. Um, and Mary showed me what we were going to be making that day. We were going to be making baseballs and baseball bats out of recycled materials. The kids came to school with old pieces of brooms, like old sticks, or old broomsticks that were broken. And she had brought a bunch of masking tape and newspapers. And so she showed the kids how to make a baseball bat using the recycled newspapers by wrapping it up tightly and bunching it in for the bat part, and then wrapping it up with the masking tape. And then we also made the baseballs with the newspaper and the masking tape. And I was thinking, wow, this is this is really sad that they have to make these baseballs and baseball bats out of this material because they don't have real ones. And they might have maybe one set of a baseball and a bat at the school, but we tried them out and they actually worked. And another day she had me there to do races with the kids, and so she took half the class and I took the other half the class, and we had all these different types of relay races that we did out on the school grounds. And I was learning Spanish the whole time that I was doing this, and the kids were speaking Spanish totally the entire time. I went to some of their soccer games that they played, and I went to see all the different programs that they did. If they had a program after school, I went to see those, and I learned a lot. And I got to eat all different types of foods that they served at these functions. So I felt like I was becoming more and more like one of the native people of Costa Rica. I felt like I was becoming one of them. And what I learned from this experience was that you just have to do normal things with the people. You have to just put yourself out there a little bit and be brave enough to ask them if you can do it, if you can go with them or speak with them or do these things with them. And generally people are going to say, yes, let's do it. Let's do it. Let's get together and do this. And so those experiences were some of my favorite memories of Costa Rica. What kinds of memories do you have of things that you might have learned from other cultures? Do you have some things that you could put some comments in the comment section? Do you have some things that you have learned from other people in other cultures? Or some ways that you've interacted with some people in other cultures, maybe on some trips that you've taken, or some neighbors that you have? Please put something in the comments, and please like and share this video and subscribe. I really need to get subscribers. I could really use your help. Thank you so much for watching this video, and I hope that you come back to see the next video. It's going to be about the homeless, one of my favorite topics. Thank you for coming.